Hey, all, today we're going to start talking about taking some of that raw data that we've organized and putting it into graphical displays of distributions. And today specifically, we are going to talk about creating histograms. So we're going to do that using Excel. So you can open up Excel for Microsoft in your browser, or you can open up the computer version of Excel, whichever works for you. I'm going to use the one in my browser so I can save my files to my Office 365 account. If you need help getting that started, please do raise your hand and I will help you do that.
Just a reminder, faculty, our meeting is after school.
So in the last lesson, we talked about this data set about the record high temperatures in Fahrenheit in the 50 states. And we processed this data and we created classes and we found boundaries and we tallied and we wrote down the frequencies, and they should look something similar to this. We had our classes. Let me see if I can increase this view. So we had our classes, 7 different classes. We created boundaries for those classes, and we tallied up the frequencies of the data points that fell within those classes. This is a list of my raw data. So what you can do is take the raw data. So if you would pause, put that raw data into Excel in one column, and then press play for the rest. So hopefully you have that data in one column. Again, if you need help along the way, please do ask. I'll be glad to help you. You can copy this information into Excel as well. So I'll have you pause again and get this information into Excel. I will show you how to get this histogram once we've got the information. So once we have all our information here, we can now take it and create a bunch of different data displays. Again, today we'll focus on making a histogram. So this is my histogram. It shows my 7 different classes. On the bottom, in the middle, I have my upper boundary labeled. And on this vertical axis is the frequency. So the number of data points, the number of states that had a record temperature in that class. And this gives us a nice visual of where the data is distributed. So very few days were in the 120s, 130s. Very few of those record highs were in between 100 and 104. And our largest grouping, the most frequent temperature range was 110 to 114. So a nice visual that we get that's much better than just looking at our raw data. So let me show you how to create this. And we are going to talk about how we can describe these and different features of these histograms in future lessons. So I'm going to shrink this up so I can show you how to make a new one. I'm going to go ahead and with my upper boundary and my frequency, I'm going to select those cells. I'm going to choose Insert, and I'm going to come over here, click this little drop down, and I'm going to go down and choose this one that says histogram. So you might be thinking, that doesn't look anything like what you had. We need to edit our histogram. So if you double click, I'll double click down here, this will pop up, and we are going to go down here to where it says series. And we want to create our bins. In our bins, we're going to select by category. Still not where we want it to be. Once we select by category in our bins, we'll go over to this little data tab. And here we're going to tell it the categories. We want to tell it that these are our categories, our upper boundaries. So if we click add field, we're going to click series 1 because when we selected this, this is first. For our values, we're going to tell it which values we want to place in our frequency. That's our series 2. So what I'm actually going to do is delete this first one, hit the trash can on this first one that says temperature. And now I should have something that looks like the the original. And it's a little distorted. And then we can go through and we can edit this. I can double click the chart title and I can give it a chart title, change the chart title. If we're on this chart tab up here, we can go to axis titles. And we can go ahead and change the title. So on my vertical axis, I wrote frequency, and axis titles, horizontal axis. It's a good idea to write what is it that we're measuring here. We're measuring temperatures in Fahrenheit. The most important thing right now is to be able to create these histograms. So again, I'm selecting these two columns, my upper boundary and my frequency. I'm clicking insert, choosing histogram. I'm going to double click down here, kind of where these numbers are. It's going to pop this up over here. I want to go down to where it says series, and I want to tell it to make my bins by category. I'm going to then go to my data tab. I'm going to tell it my categories was my first series, my upper boundary, the first column that was selected. And then for my values, I'm going to delete the first series. And my second series is my frequencies, and it will create my chart. So let me do another one. We also talked about the ages of the 50 wealthiest people in the world. Again, we broke this up into 8 classes. We did the boundaries, we did the frequencies. So we should have all that information. If not, I have it for you. But what I want you to do is get this data, get these 50 data points into Excel, into one column. It would be a good idea if you created a new tab. So you can press the plus down here and create a new tab for this new problem. So go ahead and get that data in now, and then press play to create a histogram. So hopefully you put the data in, so you should at least have the raw data. I want you to pause here, and if you haven't already, using your notes from last time, get down our information for our class, our boundaries, and you should put them in separate columns as I have done, and then our frequencies. So go ahead and pause and make sure you have that into your Excel file. So hopefully you have the data in there. We're going to create a histogram that will look like this one. I'm going to shrink it up a little bit. Shows us the distribution of the ages of the 50th wealthiest people in the United States. And we can draw some conclusions based off this. We can describe this distribution. Sometime in the future, we will talk about doing that. Right now, we just want to be able to create it. So again, I'm going to select our upper boundary column and our frequency column. Insert. We're going down to our histogram. Again, it's not going to look great at first. We're going to double click down here. Scroll all the way to the bottom where it says series, and we want to tell it how to do our bins. Our bins are our classes. So we can do it by a bunch of different ways. Right now, we want to do it by category because we have a category we want to use. Then we're going to click on our data tab. We're going to tell it what categories to use. We're going to use our upper boundary category. So series 1, because it's the first column that we selected. And then we want our series 2 to be our value. So we'll delete this first one. And we should get a chart that looks like, or we should get a histogram that looks like the one that I had. And again, we can go and change the title just by double clicking it and say ages of the wealthy, something that tells us what this distribution is about. We can look at the, if we click our chart and click this chart tab, we can go change the axis titles. So my vertical axis is the frequency, and my horizontal axis is my age, and we could say that's in years. If we should add the units. And there we have created a histogram that now we can use in the future to really describe the distribution of the ages of these 50 wealthiest people. So before you try one of these on your own, please do make sure you get your questions answered. If you feel like you're ready, create another tab in Excel, put this raw data in there, and then you're going to want to, of course, have your classes, lower and upper boundary in separate columns, your frequencies, and then make a histogram. So your job is to make a histogram using this data that we used last time for the ages of presidents. Take your time and good luck.